Do you have Christmas in France? Christmas. Christmas. Yeah.
We enjoy wrestling.
Hey everyone, it's We Enjoy Wrestling. We are the Mattitude Eric. I am Matt Fowler. Say hello, Eric Goldman.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Fowler, I bring greetings from Trish, my wife, to you, and also uproarious laughter. She's usually not home when we record, but she is right now. And I heard her little cackling, and it turned out to be a cackling at cackling because you sent her apparently some sort of mashup of Fran Drescher and Matt Hardy laughing.
With goats.
Oh, okay. She didn't mention the goats.
It's like Fran, Matt, and some goats bleeding, right? Actually, goats don't bleed. What is I don't know the official term for the goat noise.
Yeah.
But, it all sounds the same. I still love, did you ever show her the old Conan O'Brien bit? It was very quick. It was his old late night routine of, let's see what's on other channels. And that's where Clive Clemens' Inappropriate Response channel came from. Mm-hmm. Remember that? And they said, and now
I loved it. Yeah.
I think this was it. But anyway, he said, let's take a look at what's happening over on The Nanny. And it was just an air horn with a wig, on it.
Yes. Now, we are talking about this, and the reason Matt sent this to Trish is because Trish is Nanny fan number one. She is hardcore Nanny fan. She just rewatched the entire series on DVD for like the fourth time since we've been together. She is
Drescher's ride or die. She full on team. I don't know if even
Drescher. It's just the nanny.
She doesn't follow her to like Beautician and the Beast or anything. She's
no.
She's just nanny.
Yeah, it's all nanny all the time.
Was it like an OTP situation, or is it just?
I mean, just the whole thing. She's certainly, Mr. Sheffield and Fran. She certainly, shipped. But yeah, the whole
that was before you combined names for ships.
I know, Franfield or what?
It would be like Sheffield. I don't know what was Nanny's name on that show. What was her character name?
No, it was Fran. It was Fran.
Fran what though?
Oh, that I couldn't tell you offhand.
Fran Nannington.
I couldn't tell you her last name, and I couldn't tell you. No, Fine. I do know it. You know why? Because they always call her Nanny Fine. Yeah.
Oh, Fran Fine. Okay.
They give her a very comic book alliteration name. And Maxwell Sheffield.
So Finefield.
So it could be Franwell.
Finefield, Sheffine. Yeah, okay.
Max Fine. Yeah, there's a lot you could do there.
Raw and SmackDown this week, everyone, were, especially Raw. We talked about how bad Raw was last week, and it was another less than ideal Raw with a lot of repeats. We'll get into that. Because of that, we'll start with outside the ring news. But first, I want to thank everyone for listening and supporting this podcast. You can listen to us on Spreaker and Spotify and Stitcher and iTunes. Please subscribe to us on all those things so it can go right into your feed right when the podcast drops. The past few weeks we've done one on Thursday and one on Wednesday. This week we're doing it on Friday. We'd like to do it on Thursdays, but life finds a way to mess us up.
Stop us.
But we are doing it weekly, which is way better than what we could say anything like regarding channel surfing, which was sort of a quarterly podcast at best.
It was the once a year special.
Yeah, it was always a holiday special for some reason. But yeah, thank you. We've got some great reviews on Apple Podcasts / iTunes. And thank you everyone again. We are on Twitter also at the Matt Fowler and the Eric Goldman, and the podcast is on at WEW Podcast on Twitter. We have a Facebook group and Instagram. We're at just We Enjoy Wrestling. And somebody actually sent us in, I would say, and look, they knew it too, but somebody basically gave us the best review you could possibly give us on iTunes. And not just talking star ratings, which is 5 stars. Please give us that 5-star rating. But this came from Animal Freak 14. I don't know what it is with the usernames on iTunes. It's never someone's name. It's always a handle. I mean, it's not like Hitler AIDS 420, but it's nowhere near. It doesn't allow me. It doesn't give me clues to the person's actual name. Anyway, thank you, Animal Freak. This podcast is the Captain America elevator fight scene in Winter Soldier of podcasts.
Wow.
I mean, that's the highest honor. That's the apex.
That is.
But I want to say that Animal Freak kind of knew that too, tooting his own horn or her own horn a little bit, because the title of this review is A Perfect Summation. so Animal Freak knew already that this was the highest compliment that you could give to anything, really.
This will be the one they remember before. I mean, this review.
This review. But thank you, everyone. Outside of the ring news, some tragic deaths this week. Larry the Axe Hennig, who died, I think he was 82. And, you know, this is the guy who died old age, I would say appropriate age for death age.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And
grandfather in an industry where that does not happen a lot, unfortunately. Yeah.
You know, especially if we're talking actually about men in the business from his generation.
Yeah.
And he is the grandfather of Curtis Axel, obviously the father of Curt Hennig, my favorite wrestler, Mr. Perfect. When I talk about Mr. Perfect being my favorite wrestler, I really am specifically talking about Mr. Perfect. I know Curt Hennig existed beyond that, and previous to that in AWA and then after in WCW. I did not like the whole Rap is Crap West Texas Rednecks storyline that he did. He was part of that angle. Do you remember? You don't know that, Eric, but that was when they brought in hip-hop stars to be babyface, but because it was actually WCW, Rap would always get booed, so the Rednecks became the heroes. It's kind of how WCW was, being a Southern promotion.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Mr. Perfect, when I talk about Hennig being my favorite wrestler, specifically that late 80s, early 90s, Mr. Perfect is my favorite incarnation of Hennig. But back then, they would mention on air a few times. It wasn't a huge thing because WWF didn't really do that, but they talked about him being a second-generation star and talked about his father, Larry the Axe. Of course, I had no idea who he was back then when I was a kid. There was no way for me to watch old matches or anything like that. But there weren't a ton, unless you're talking about wrestling families like the Briscoes or the Funks or the Von Erichs, there weren't a ton of notable second-generation stars coming up. You know, once we got into the Ruthless Aggression era, you got people like Randy Orton, and then you got Cody Rhodes, because Dustin Rhodes came after Mr. Perfect. I'd just saying that Curt Hennig was, for me, the most notable second-generation star that I noticed first.
Yeah.
But Larry the Axe died, and then also Dynamite Kid died. And I know you grew up with the British Bulldogs as well. I don't know that all of our listeners did. We are men of a certain age, just like that TV show, Men of a Certain Age. And we grew up with specifically the tag teams of the 80s.
Just like that TV show, Fringe.
Just like that TV show, John from Cincinnati.
Right.
But Dynamite Kid, Tom Billing, I'm going to get his name messed up, and people are going to be angry. Billington. I wanted to say Billingsley for some reason. But he died at the age of 60, but he was in poor health mentally and physically. He had wrecked his body. He was also, for all intents and purposes, not a great human being, if you've ever heard stories about him told. I'm sure with those he was close friends with, he was fine, but he was also very difficult to get along with and difficult to work with. But he is also known, so you pair that with him also being very groundbreaking and revolutionary in the arena specifically of junior heavyweight, cruiserweight wrestling in the 80s, late 80s, what he did in Japan with Tiger Mask, and how it basically set the standard. I don't want to use the term blueprint, but this was an era when these guys, you just didn't do that. Granted, these were built heavyweights. Cruiserweights. These were, Dynamite Kid, he was small, but he was huge. That sounds weird to say, but you think of someone like Chris Benoit, who basically modeled his entire physique and moveset after Dynamite Kid. He was such a star, a stand for the guy. But Dynamite Kid was really compact. He was basically a fire plug, but he can move like no one had ever seen his moves like back then. So he really set the standard for cruiserweight wrestling for, I would say, the next couple decades, even to today. A lot of the exchanges and movesets that you see from a lot of the guys today, they owe it to Dynamite Kid.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, one of those things where I hadn't thought of a name in forever, years and years and years, and it just hit me as we're talking about him and the British Bulldogs. I was like, Matilda. I remembered their dog, Matilda.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember the replacement dog, Winston?
No, I don't remember Winston.
Yeah, Winston came after Matilda.
There was a lot of like animal sidekicks in this era.
There were parrots or snakes.
Yeah. It was like G.I. Joe, like how like
it was like Crocmaster. Where was Skinner never had a gator, and that was very upsetting.
Junkyard, yeah. Really missing out there.
So, and then after that, some happy news. Aleister Black and Zelina Vega got married. Mm-hmm. Which I didn't know they were together. Did you know?
I did know they were together.
You did know. You didn't tell me?
Yeah. No, I'd seen the rumors they were together, and then she had posted like a sort of workout video a couple weeks ago, like training video where she was like sparring with him. That was kind of the first, like, it seemed like it wasn't a confirmation they were a couple, but it was.
Yeah,
like,
but I just saw her post pictures of him of her with Cien Almas.
Well, I mean, she always posts pictures of her and Cien Almas as far as like,
So because it was so indifferent is when you suspected?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was someone from the wrestling world, and they were like casual. It wasn't like in any way like pushing like because when she posts pictures with her and Cien, it's usually like a storyline, like we're dominating, we're coming in, but like this was like just her and Aleister Black kind of sparring, not dressed in character. So a lot of people were like, because the rumors were out there that they were dating.
He's such a dark black void, and she's so spicy. I wonder how it works.
Maybe that you just wrote the poster,
yeah, for the rom-com where their backs together,
right, where they're like looking at each other, like with both like, oh, this guy,
but somehow she's pulling on his tie, Pretty Woman style.
Even though why he's wearing a tie, we don't know.
It's just a tie with his wrestling tights. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It's like, he's got Dark Oblivion in place of his soul, and she's a spicy number.
She's great at everything except her love life.
She's also poor at her job. Remember the old TV pitch I wanted where it was someone who was bad at their job and their love life? Right.
They don't have anything. They're just a terrible mess.
Yeah, like they can't get anything together.
Right.
Natty Neidhart is apparently injured in real life, hence the table spot on Raw. I think her elbow is banged up for real. So it is weird when they sort of target the actual body part that's injured, because I always feel like
they just did it with Braun.
Yeah, but it's like that's the weak spot. Why are you doing like it's so weird.
But no, I know we've talked about this before, but yeah, the like this person's really hurt, so we need to write them out by potentially injuring them worse. Because at least with Aleister, actually, it was like an off-screen attack, so all he had to do was lay there. But
he also pulled his groin, so I don't know how they would go better.
But exactly. But it's like no matter what, it's like he didn't have to do something that would like physically possibly hurt him worse the way they did it. But with like Braun and Natty, and it's not the only time, they're like it was the Bludgeon Brother who had to go out recently.
Yeah, it was an arm thing.
Yeah, so it's like you're really hurt, so let's have you do like a match or some big physical segment where we will write in your injury, potentially injuring you worse in the process.
We're gonna work over that body part a lot in this match, and I know it pains you greatly.
Right.
That was, by the way, Jim Neidhart's table at ringside that the Riot Squad broke. So she has to keep learning not to bring her father's things.
Don't bring his stuff.
It's like just insult to injury. Alexa Bliss, apparently there were rumors that she was cleared and she was trained to get back in the ring, but now some other conflicting reports say she won't be back until the Rumble, which I got that idea, I guess, because she's got that new role on Raw. Sorry, I paused a bit because I realized I said the A word. I remember last podcast I said I was going to unplug my Amazon overlord here, and I didn't. Yes. And so now I have to watch the saying Miss Bliss's name, because I heard a little boom in the background. I was like, no, what's about to happen? And it's just
some reason I imagine your Alexa has which I just said it in my lit up, but yours has a HAL 9000 light on it. Like it's just staring at you.
It does. Well, and then it pulses and then it circles too. He
Yeah,
goes
that's
around,
what I just said.
goes back and forth like hits the front red light. That was a Knight Rider reference.